He turned and angrily replied, I don't need you. Kai helplessly looked at the fierce fire dragon and said, I can see its weakness, but I don't have enough power to attack. Erasure spoke with disdain, so you want to ask me for help? I don't team up with weaklings. Kai was urgent, it's coming. The fire dragon quickly rushed towards the two of them. It flung them high into the air. Then it roared loudly and spewed fire. Erasure was extremely panicked. How is this possible? It spewed red flames onto his face immediately. He screamed in pain violently. Erasure was completely terrified and overwhelmed by its superior power. Kai challenged, if you can defeat it, go for it. Erasure angrily replied, you bastard. Erasure anxiously asked, so what, where is it, that weak point? Kai quickly replied, there's an inverted scale on its neck, can you see it? Erasure looked up at the fire dragon. He saw that there was indeed a small scale, that one. Kai quickly assigned the mission, I'll draw its attention, and you aim to explode that scale, can you do it? Erasure, full of confidence, definitely. Steady stood on the high castle wall, urging the fire dragon. Why are you just standing there? Attack them, he yelled, kill them, fire dragon. The fire dragon roared again in anger. It used its long claws to unleash a series of attacks, leaving Kai and Erasure unable to react. They struggled to withstand its overwhelming power. It let out a loud roar, as if trying to tear apart space itself. Realizing the situation seemed more stable, Kai quickly dashed towards the fire dragon. It glanced at him with surprise. Kai urged, over here. He had successfully attracted the fire dragon's attention. It quickly opened its mouth, about to breathe fire at him. But with his inherent agility, Kai managed to dodge the attack. Then he landed safely. He urgently called for Erasure. Erasure rushed forward, got it. He aimed precisely at the scale on the fire dragon's neck. And urgently punched a powerful blow at its weak point. Die, you wretched lizard, destructive blast activate. The fire dragon screamed in pain, and some yellow liquid flowed from its face. It was slowly falling from above. Steady was confused. Erasure smirked confidently, easy. Kai replied disdainfully, you call that tough? Erasure angrily shouted, shut up. Kai looked up at Steady with a challenging look, you've lost your trump card, are you going to continue? Steady was very scared but still tried to answer, of course, I still have many monsters. But when he looked closely, he realized that all of his monsters had been completely dealt with and they were lying scattered on the ground. With their blood-stained swords in hand, they coldly declared, we've taken care of these monsters. After saying that, Midou and his teammates also looked at him simultaneously with a burning fighting spirit. Steady panicked and yelled, oh, shoot, just as he was about to run away. Another person stood right behind him and blocked his path. Where do you think you're going? Suddenly, as he hurriedly backed away, he slipped, reaching out for help. But received nothing, and then he fell into a pool of water. He played in the pool of water. As he regained his composure, a sharp knife was pointed directly at his head. Kai said in a cold voice, it's midnight, and we've had to spend too much time fighting, but there are a few things we want to ask you. Steady's face was ashen, he answered in fear, wait a moment, I will tell you everything, just please don't kill me. Next, his face suddenly darkened, and his eyes turned purple, looking truly terrifying. Midou and Rina looked at him with surprise. He slumped his head into the water, a purple poison flowing from the corners of his eyes. Kai looked at Steady, he's dead. Midou wondered, what was that just now? Kai gently explained, probably some kind of curse, I read something like that when I looked at the documents in the library. Midou pondered for a moment and said, so they cursed him and when he tried to reveal information he would be killed by the curse. Kai was a little worried, I think the demon army will continue to be a threat to us. A day after the Steady incident occurred. At a tall and majestic castle, a voice suddenly rose, unbelievable. Leonora laughed with glee, I didn't expect such a thing to happen when I'm not here. Narumi angrily pointed at her face, you're the one who gave Steady his duties, aren't you going to apologize? She continued to laugh meaningfully. Then she said again, that's right, I apologize for the misunderstanding, allow me to correct myself. I didn't think a person who domesticated such a weak monster could cause so much damage, that's what I mean. Everyone around was stunned and looked at her in confusion. Rina replied uncomfortably, wait, you mean you two knew he was a devil spy but still let him run rampant? Leonora still smiled, I told you that from now on your training will become more and more difficult. What happened was only a part of it, Haki replied with irritation, we almost died, he set fire to everything while we were sleeping. Gaius spoke up in defense of Leonora, don't be childish, it's your fault for not being vigilant at night. The students looked at the two of them with anger. Kai thought to himself that he was right, they didn't recognize the monster until it was too late, but it was still absurd to expect anything more from normal high school students. Leonora announced seriously, now let's get to the main topic. Next, you will go to visit the royal capital. Midu wondered, what will we do there? Leonora solemnly said, the focus is to reveal the hero candidates. A public parade will be held in the royal capital. You will be on stage as the leading actors. Night fell, and on that day the bright moon shone brightly, illuminating the whole sky. Gaius sat on horseback, majestically commanding the soldiers, that's enough for today, rest for a while until the sun comes up. They obeyed the order, understood. In the darkness of the night, the students were sitting around a campfire. And as we chatted together, suddenly a voice spoke up. I think there were about 30 people. Erasure was enjoying the meet while analyzing the situation. Everyone around was surprised. 30 men, you mean, he calmly replied, the number of soldiers accompanying us. And from what I see, they're nothing special. Kenta excitedly said, wow, I bet you can take them down with a punch. What do you mean? Erasure replied angrily, don't you understand, the opportunity to act has come. Atsushihai replied, that's right. Kenta and Atsushihai said in turn, there have always been a lot of soldiers around us, but now there are only 30, we have more soldiers. Erasure quickly affirmed, it's clear that they are underestimating us. I bet they'll never think we can be rebellious. He was full of fighting spirit. Tonight we will act, call Narumi and his group here. Kai stood leaning against the tent, deep in thought. He was right, there are very few soldiers with us, they are not professionals either. But that's because Leonora and Gaius are confident that they can control us themselves. I need more time to find out why they are so confident. Then he called Midu. Would you like us to talk? It was also getting darker, most people had returned to their tents to sleep. But there was still a group of students who went into the forest together. They included Erasure, Kenta, Atsushihai and other teammates. Erasure asked in a harsh voice, do you think those guys who aren't on guard are all asleep? Narumi calmly replied, it seems so. Erasure commanded with a decisive voice, all right, let's begin. Midu spoke up to stop him, Erasure, wait. He pulled Rina and some other teammates forward, both sides looked at each other with tension. Midu slowly approached them step by step, I heard you're trying to kill Leonora-san and Gaia-san. Erasure frowned and asked angrily, which dog told you that? Midu calmly replied, I just happened to overhear it when passing by. Rina wondered, are you serious about doing that? I know they're annoying, but this is crazy. Erasure couldn't hide his anger, you guys are crazy, how long do we have to let her treat us like good dogs? Midu vehemently intervened, I understand how you feel, but you've gone too far, we can think of another way. Erasure yelled directly at his opponent, all you do is talk, do you have a plan? Midu revealed his plan, I'll become Leonora-san's pawn and defeat the Demon Lord, in exchange, I'll make her guarantee everyone's safety. Erasure snapped back angrily, you really think she'll listen to you? Midu confidently replied, I believe that when I'm stronger, I'll have the power to negotiate. Erasure turned away, resolutely saying, it's still impossible, besides, I don't need someone like you to protect me, now get out of the way, I just want to go back to my own world. With determination, Midu's group also affirmed that if he really wanted to do it, they would stop him. Erasure clenched his fists, he was so angry he couldn't stand it anymore, you bastards. Then he brought his leg out, preparing to launch an attack on those people, you'll regret this. Erasure immediately kicked Midu. Fortunately, Midu blocked the blow but also fell to the ground. He was a little disoriented, too fast, and this power. Erasure was also surprised, I can't believe this dog blocked the attack. While Erasure and Midu were filled with fighting spirit, two guards came over and asked what they were doing there. Midu replied, sorry, we were just discussing some things. Hearing that, the two guards turned and walked away, they chatted casually, we have to get up early tomorrow, let's go to sleep. Erasure clicked his tongue with annoyance. What a pain. Midu turned to look at him again. Erasure gritted his teeth and said, I've had enough of the weaklings. The scene was taking place at the Diagress Temple, the royal capital. People were bustling around, creating a very lively scene. Narumi was surprised by the liveliness of the place, so this is the royal capital. Mireille agreed, it's too crowded here. Rina turned and replied, but it's still not as crowded as Tokyo. Yumi agreed, that's true. Gaius led the carriages and horses in front, followed by the group of students walking in a line. Many people around curiously looked at them, wondering if they were. Gaius shouted loudly, make way for the esteemed Archbishop Leonora and the hero candidates. The people around wondered, hero candidates, does he mean the people chosen by God? Then they turned to look at the group of students following behind. They cheered and encouraged enthusiastically. Midu suddenly raised one hand and held it high. Erasure, Atsushi, and Kenta looked to the sides of the road with annoyed expressions. Kai spoke up, I guess these people have a lot of faith in the hero candidates, and the fact that we'll save them too. Rin looked annoyed. It feels a bit uncomfortable, doesn't it? Kai didn't answer, just silently glanced into the distance. Finally, they had set foot in the royal capital. Welcome, heroic candidates, to the royal capital. Please rest and recover after your long journey. The one called the Holy Knight, Reinus, welcomed them happily. The Sengnam students excitedly ran into the bedroom. The bed was so soft, it was wonderful. I'm so glad, I'm so tired of sleeping on the ground. Meanwhile, the group of female students invited each other to enjoy the feeling of soaking in the hot spring as if they had just come back to life. It was great. Erashur and his group of friends were enjoying a very sumptuous meal. It was so delicious, tell them to bring more. In the quiet room, Midu diligently practiced swordsmanship alone. On the towering castle, Kai silently gazed into the distance, observing everything. He stared at the royal capital and thought it was time to find out more information. Around the castle, guards stood everywhere. After a while of observation, Kai realized that the situation wasn't very favorable. Too many guards, moving around the castle like that was very dangerous. His eyes swept everywhere and he accidentally saw something that made him stop. It was the knight who had just led them on a tour. Next, he hid behind a large tree and silently observed Reinus. Reinus was standing next to two guards. One of them spoke to her, "Where are the heroic candidates, Reinus-sama?" Reinus replied, "They're probably resting in their rooms." The soldier wondered if those children were really chosen by the creator god. Well, Reinus casually replied, "If they're much stronger than normal teenagers, then yes." The soldier continued, "Actually, I'm worried about the devil's retinue. The heroic candidates in the royal capital will definitely provoke them into action," the other one said. "Yeah, there have been a lot of changes lately. I think we should be more careful." Kai, standing nearby, had heard everything they were discussing about the devil's retinue. Reinus reassured them, "Don't worry, the heroic candidates will protect the royal capital, right?" They laughed, "That's right, then." The three of them walked away. "It's time for training, let's go." Kai thought deeply, "Now I have even more questions, I should probably go into town." Another evening came, the scene shifted to a certain pub. The place was so lively that people came and went constantly. Every seat in the pub was almost full. A long, dark hand quickly reached out, handing a gold coin to the old man behind the counter, ordering him to make a beer and the best snacks he had. It was Kai. He pulled up his hood, slightly covering his face. The old bartender replied cheerfully, "Okay, wait a moment." He faintly heard the people around him discussing, "By the way, have you seen the heroic candidates? They look no different from a bunch of kids." Another person interrupted, "Never mind, we must believe in God. He doesn't want the church to hear him say that." Kai thought to himself, "It seems that the church has a lot of power in this country. The people are more afraid of the church than the king or the nobility." The old man handed Kai his beer and said, "Here you go." Kai spoke, "Bartender, I want to ask you about a few things. I just arrived in this country so I don't know much." The old man was slightly surprised but then happily agreed, Okay. Kai started asking questions. "I've heard a lot about the devil's retinue. Who are they?" The old man scratched his head and then explained, You know this country is at war against the demon legion, right? Currently, the devil, the leader, is the most terrifying monster. It is said that humans can also be seduced by the overwhelming power of the devil." Kai asked, "Are those the devil's retinue?" The old man continued to explain, "Yes, they rampage across the country, and just a few days ago they blew up the mansion of a noble." Kai sighed, "What a nuisance," he thought to himself, "so that's it, they are a terrorist organization." A while later, Kai quickly left. He carried many thoughts in his heart. The heroic candidates must defeat the devil, so our presence in the royal capital will definitely provoke the devil's retinue. That's why everyone looks so worried. Rin ran up in a hurry. She called out loudly, "Shinju-kun." Then she ran up to Kai and asked urgently, "I finally found you. Where did you go?" Kai replied, his face showing unease, "We are in a completely unfamiliar place. I have to go gather information." Rin replied worriedly, "I understand, but going alone is still too dangerous. I can help if you really need it." Kai said coolly, "I can take care of myself, just be quiet and stay with your friends." Rin angrily shouted, "What's with that attitude? You should be happy that I'm willing to help you." Kai conceded, "Alright, I'll let you help me." Kai asked, "I need information about the royal capital. Can you talk to the people in the town?" Rin was overjoyed, and she quickly agreed, "Really, since you've begged, I have to do it." Rin was so happy that she walked along singing happily. Kai quickly blended into the crowd and left. Finally, someone had a mysterious smile on their lips. After a night of effort, Kai had to return home. He gently opened the window. His face showed signs of fatigue and disappointment. Kai threw his cloak onto the bed along with a jumble of thoughts. In the end, I have no useful information, but at least I know about the existence of a new enemy. Late at night, when everything was quiet, a loud noise suddenly echoed, startling Kai. He stood by the door, curious and a little cautious, wondering, why is it so noisy so late at night? Right after that, Kai decided to go out as well. Many people were standing in the hall, and everyone's face was focused and worried about something. Kai quickly asked as soon as he reached the crowd, "What's going on?" Kaori turned around and answered, "Shinjuku-san, Kanzaki-san, he's disappeared." She briefly recounted the situation. Honya-san was the first to find out because they shared a room. Everyone is looking for him, no one knows where he went. Kai sighed inwardly, feeling a little sad. They didn't know that he had just disappeared as well. Well, it's because I don't share a room with anyone. Outwardly, Kai nodded in response. That's worrying. Midu approached with a serious face and a question, "Do you know anything?" Kai also answered truthfully, "No, I'm sorry, I don't know, I was still sleeping in my room earlier." Midu hummed and then put his hand on his chin, contemplating. Feeling the situation was tense, Midu announced loudly, "Everyone, listen up, it's quite certain that he is not in the castle, the sun is about to rise, let's go outside and look for him." Contrary to his enthusiasm, Rina had some objections, but there was absolutely no malice. "Actually, I think we should leave him alone, but I guess we have to listen to Shuji." Kai also thoughtfully analyzed the situation. It's quite dark right now, everyone in the town is probably still asleep. The night sky was illuminated by the soft moonlight. Kai was exploring and searching for his friend. He looked around every nook and cranny on the street. Kai pursed his lips, though worried. He reassured himself, he's probably around here. He was continuing to walk when he suddenly saw a card lying on the ground. Kai immediately approached and picked it up. In that moment, he was bewildered. This is Kanzaki's student ID card. The situation became intense when a strange figure emerged from a small alley. Not just one, but 4 strangers at the same time raised their swords and attacked Kai. The sword brushed past, drawing a bright line in the air. Fortunately, Kai was agile, so he was completely unscathed, but his gaze had become sharp. Kai bluntly used harsh words, "You son of a bitch." Kai quickly grabbed the wrist of one of them. Then, using this one as a weapon, he held his arm and plunged the knife directly into the neck of his comrade. The remaining guy exclaimed in fright, "Damn it." Kai didn't say much and kicked, sending him spitting up blood. This guy rolled on the ground and couldn't fight back anymore. He felt every vein in his body tensing up and aching. Witnessing Kai's decisive attacks, the remaining guy in the group began to retreat in fear. He lightly commented, "Your skills are terrible, whether you're a spy or a warrior." Then he asked, "Furthermore, you look like an ordinary person, so what is your purpose for coming here?" The guy was stunned, his mouth just shut and all he could utter was, "Huh." Kai glared at him, his face now exuding a cruel look, "You're going to tell me everything." Inside a dark dungeon with a dim torch, Rin was being held captive in this place. Her arms were tightly locked by chains connected to 2 iron pillars, and her entire body had several scratches. Despite the harsh circumstances, Rin did not show any leniency, even scowling. Watching the guards teasing her, "How scary, she is quite fierce." Rin couldn't control her anger, she showed her determination through her shout, "My answer will still be the same, I have nothing to say to you all." Those guys snickered, saying, "Come on, we're just trying to get to know the hero candidates a little better, alright then." One guy slightly curled his fingertips, his palm precisely aimed at Rin. Their vulgarity and disgust were truly unfathomable. This guy, without a shred of humanity, ripped apart the clothing on Rin's chest. She gritted her teeth in resignation amidst the jeering laughter. "How much longer are you going to keep blathering? Just you wait and see." Because they were so engrossed in teasing Rin, none of them noticed Kai's presence. He silently observed and judged them to be ordinary people, age 20, male, attack F, defense F, agility F, endurance F, energy F, condition aggressive, skills none, human race, age 20, male, attack D, defense F, agility F, endurance D, energy F, condition aggressive, skills none, but it's hard to believe Kanzaki was kidnapped by them. Suddenly, small knives whizzed out of nowhere. They plunged into each of their heads, laughter abruptly ceased, and their lives ended in that instant. 2 guys fell down simultaneously, causing Rin to be bewildered. Pools of blood spread across the cold ground. Kai's gentle and caring voice rang out right after, "Are you alright, Shinjuku-kun?" Rin was flustered, not knowing what to say, "I'm sorry." Kai deliberately gestured for her to be silent and whispered a reminder. "Don't make any noise, we'll talk later, we need to escape from here now." After being freed from the restraints of the large chains, Rin massaged her weary wrists and said to Kai, "Thank you." But at that moment, Kai suddenly sensed danger approaching, his whole body tensed, and a flash of panic flickered in his eyes. Kai proactively stood in front of Rin and frowned, tensely staring into the void. A slight sound came from the deep darkness ahead, wisps of smoke diffused into the air, further heightening one's sense of caution. A figure rushed forward, both Kais immediately showed up to protect Rin. The large figure slammed a giant blade down into the ground, causing the ground to crack. Kai quickly carried Rin away from the danger zone. The blade was lifted heavily, accompanied by the question, "So you dodged it, huh?" Rhaenys greeted the two with a grand display and a nonchalant smile. "Perhaps I really have to kill you, hero candidates." Kai raised an eyebrow and asked for some information. Did you come on the orders of Knight Rhaenys, the Holy Knight?" His expression instantly changed, his face filled with anger and inhumanity. "Precisely, but perhaps you'll like this name better, General of the Demon Lord's army." Kai calmly assessed the situation. It seems even the capital is surrounded by enemies, this kingdom is nearing its demise. Rhaenys bared his teeth with excitement. "I'll end it faster by eliminating the hero candidates." Both were wary of their opponent, so neither took the initiative to advance. However, Rhaenys' steps were somewhat more eager, he kept leaning forward, anticipating an opportunity. Kai's pupils also became more heated than usual, turning blood-red and displaying an outburst of inner anger. He carefully read the opponent's information: name, Rhaenys Walter, age 28, male, attack B, defense B, agility B, stamina B, energy B, condition normal, skill level 3 swordsmanship, level 3 fire magic. Kai thought to himself, being very careful to remind himself, all his skills are at a level that proves he is well-rounded, I shouldn't underestimate him. Rhaenys, by now, had lost his patience and frowned. Kai had also gathered his spirit and charged forward, shouting loudly to build momentum, "Let's go." Rhaenys lifted himself up with the sword in his hand. He lunged forward and swung his arm, delivering a decisive strike. Kai dodged this deadly blow. Because of this, he inadvertently ignited more anger within Rhaenys. He waved his hand and created a small magic circle in his palm. "Obey me and burn the target." Fireballs. Fireballs appeared, turning the space into a vibrant orange-red color. They attacked Kai and burned a part of his clothes. But Kai was unharmed. He gently pursed his lips, gliding past each fireball and surveying, "It's fire magic." Rhaenys proudly declared to him, "You're in the air, you can't avoid it." Kai continued to use his old technique, throwing a small dagger towards his opponent. Rhaenys scoffed and sneered, "Useless." Burning, fire, seeing that everything in front of him and the surrounding space had been burned. Rhaenys, smugly believing he had won, declared it was over, the hero candidate. Luckily, Kai was unharmed. He pulled out his gun and fired a shot. The bullet flew in a straight line, striking Rhaenys directly in the middle of his forehead, much to his astonishment. Rhaenys' arrogance finally reached its limit. He lay on the floor with his eyes wide open, only the whites visible. As for Kai, he was already used to this kind of thing, so he showed no emotion. He stared at the gun and clicked his tongue. Then he gently slipped it back into his jacket pocket and muttered, "I don't intend to use it in this situation because my ammunition is limited." Only then did Kai see Rhaenys lying motionless in a pool of crimson blood, utterly terrified, but he was right, he shouldn't have jumped into the air. He needed to learn to fight his enemies head-on if he wanted to survive in this world. Rin was given cover behind a door by him. When the commotion subsided, she cautiously peeked out and asked, "Was that a gun?" Kai replied in an extremely nonchalant tone, "This is standard equipment for an assassin." Rin, startled, hugged herself and exclaimed, "It's terrifying to know someone in my class has been carrying a gun all this time." Her cheeks suddenly flushed red, and she continued, embarrassed, "But thank you, you came to save me, didn't you?" To Kai's surprise, he replied bluntly, as if wanting to punch him in the ear, "It's just a coincidence, and you can't even use your dominating power." She was also a little puzzled about this. "I don't know why, but I couldn't use magic while I was chained in those handcuffs, but now it's fine." Kai bent down to pick up a cloak and thought to himself, "So those handcuffs are quite special too." He quickly pulled it up, covering Rin's torn lower garment, and said to her, "That's good, let's get out of here." Rin brushed aside her embarrassment and said loudly, "Shinju, those guys just now wanted to attack everyone in our class and—" Kai walked ahead hesitantly but still answered her, "I know, I heard it too, someone I captured before coming here confessed everything." The killer then screamed, "Please don't kill me." Kai ran his fingertips lightly over the sharp blade, saying, "That's up to you." The man crawled on the ground, giving him a pitiful look. "We were just following orders. They said the hero candidates were enemies of the Demon Lord, and we had to kill them," he said. He advanced, his hand gripping the knife handle firmly, pointing the blade at the man. "So you killed Kanzaki too, huh?" The man stammered, the girl is still alive, we've decided to hold her hostage to attack the other hero candidates. On the deserted road at dawn, Kai walked and recounted the story to Rin. Surprisingly, he hadn't been killed by the deadly curse like Steady. Therefore, I don't think this is the work of the devil. Rin felt uneasy, expressing her feelings. It turns out these are fanatics, untrustworthy. I thought the people in this world were our allies. Kai sighed and reminded Rin not to be fooled by people like that, because he was careless and that's why they handcuffed him, right? Rin angrily retorted, shut up, they answered all my questions when I tried to find out more, you know. Kai continued, so you don't think there's a reason for that? Demons are our enemies, but humans can be our enemies too. Rin admitted helplessly, but her tone was still a little sharp. I regret it so much. Okay, it's because I was too careless. The two were standing together when someone from behind shouted, Shinju Kenzaki-san. Seeing a familiar figure running towards them, Rin exclaimed, Midu. He appeared with a radiant and relieved smile. Midu approached and breathed a sigh of relief. Thank God you're okay, she replied somewhat shyly. Sorry for making you worry. Midu still smiled happily. I'm just glad you're safe. Shinju-kun found you, didn't he? Kai suddenly became tense and suggested, Midu, we need to talk. Midu also sensed it, so he added, something has happened, am I right? The conversation was sparked by a question, the cult of the devil. Kai folded his arms and began recounting the information he had gathered from last night's events. Yes, it was a group of fanatics who worshipped a demon lord and wanted to oppose humanity, and we were their target. Midu understood without Kai having to say it. The problem with humans is that we can't distinguish who our enemies are, unlike with monsters. Kai wholeheartedly agreed, adding, he's right, I think we should ask everyone to be more vigilant. Midu agreed without objection, okay, report this to Leonora-san, I just hope she'll strengthen the defenses. But Rin had a different opinion. She closed her eyes, looking dejected. If we asked her to do that, she'd probably tell us to handle it ourselves. Midu gave a wry smile but didn't argue, yes. Then, he raised his voice and outlined a few immediate tasks. First, gather everyone together and decide on the next course of action. Currently, everyone is scattered in all directions searching for Kenzaki-san. But suddenly a loud noise came from somewhere, and Rin screamed in fright, while Midu and Kai turned around to look. A plume of black smoke rose from the back of the house. The hurried footsteps were approaching where the three of them were standing. Seeing the shadows of red cloaks, it seemed like they were meeting familiar faces again. They appeared this time with more careful preparation, going in large groups and holding weapons in their hands. The whole crowd surrounded the three people and glared with menacing eyes and a sinister smile. The one holding a sword, the one holding a spear, and the one gripping a dagger tightly, each of them harboring wicked intentions. Midu was confused, and speculated that this was probably exactly what they were hoping for. Kai squinted and announced to his two friends. They're here, get ready to fight. With the appearance of these dangerous villains, the sky also darkened with black clouds, and the space was tinged with a gloomy gray color. Rin, Midu, and Kai gathered their spirits and prepared to face them. The other heroes also came out, although everyone was bewildered but did not fear and run away. Among the girls, Rina was the most composed. She was not panicked, nor was she confused, but stood with her hands on her hips, looking fiercely. Among them, a red-haired boy also scanned his eyes all over and then clenched his fists. The information frames were displayed one after another: human race, age 20, male gender, attack D, defense D, agility D, stamina F, energy F, hostile status, skills none. Human race, age 20, male gender, attack D, defense D, agility D, stamina F, energy F, hostile status, skills none. Kai focused his eyes. There were 6 of them. Although their stats were lower than Reyna's, fighting them was also a problem. They were warriors. One of the villains shouted to attack. The others obeyed and rushed in at the same time. Kai called to his teammates standing next to him, Kenzaki. She didn't wait for his instructions and immediately created a sonic wave. I know, stop. Before Rin's special magic, those evil guys could no longer move. Kai, taking the opportunity, quickly threw a series of daggers forward, his movement creating an arc sweeping through space. Each of them received a painful end without being able to react, only managing to shout one sentence before falling silent. Even Midu, his friend, was surprised by his decisive attacks on the opponent and showed no mercy. He could only stammer. Midu then regained his composure and advised Kai, Shinju-kun, they are humans, not demons. He replied indifferently, his voice cold, adding sharp eyes, so what, they are still our enemies. Midu still protested with a resolute attitude, but Kai cut him off immediately. Don't say too much, there's still one more. This was the leader who had ordered the others to charge. He was attacking from behind Midu, and only then did he discover it in shock. Fortunately, he could still defend himself in time, but because he was so startled, he suddenly cursed, "Damn it." He didn't want to attack, but instead persuaded the opponent with his humanity. "Why would you do this? We are all humans, aren't we?" In response, he was met with a self-satisfied smile. "We do everything for our master." He and Midu, one attacking, one defending, both wanted to restrain the opponent. Meanwhile, Rin slowly turned her palm towards the two people. But Kai stood up to stop her. Rin was a little surprised and whispered, "Shinjuku-kun." He straightforwardly requested, "Don't do anything, I want Midu to do it." The sword of one of them swung out and grazed the air. The other sword immediately had to be pulled back. Midu was the one who took the initiative. His masterful sword stroke caused the sword in the other person's hand to break in two. He held up his sword with only the handle with a stunned expression. Midu didn't put in much thought like before. "If you surrender, I will spare your life, put down your sword." He not only refused to surrender but also shouted, "You dare to mock me, damn hero candidate." Suddenly, he jumped up in Midu's surprise. A stream of red liquid spurted out. Midu's hand was injured by his short sword. It made the opponent suffer pain. He laughed excitedly. Midu gritted his teeth and endured patiently. "Damn it." So he didn't bother to say anything anymore, directly slashed a blow from top to bottom and carved a long and deep wound on his body. The self-satisfied smile was immediately cut off when his life was also taken by Midu. But suddenly he looked with a doubtful attitude. "That guy is as tough as a leech," he can still chuckle and taunt. "It's not over, there's more." Fearing Midu's own compassion would make him hesitate, Kai stepped forward and ordered, "Finish him, Midu." But Midu really couldn't bring himself to do it. "Can I just leave him here to die?" Kai looked at him and said gently, "No, you must ensure the danger is eliminated." Midu was a bit surprised by his friend's indifference. "How can you say that so calmly? He's a human being like us." Kai gently reminded him, "Midu, it's your choice. While we're standing here chatting, the whole class is under attack." Seeing Midu had some hesitation, Kai threw in the final blow, "Aren't you going to help everyone? You're the strongest in our class." In a hushed but heavy voice, Kai continued, whispering in Midu's ear, "Tell me, what is more important, the enemy's life or the lives of your classmates?" Finally, Midu also had to yield and follow Kai's advice. "Okay." A stream of blood spurted out, showing how decisive Midu was this time. He turned around and said to Kai, "I'm going to save everyone." In the sparsely populated alley, before the sun even rose, corpses were strewn everywhere. On the ground after a rigorous inspection by the heroes. The red-haired man with a ponytail tightened his grip around one guy's neck and murmured, "It seems you're the last one." This guy's face was turning purple, saliva was running down his mouth, but the scream couldn't escape his throat. Instead, he was extremely pleased, baring his teeth and laughing hysterically. His hands tightened more and more. "Die." In the end, that guy was not only strangled to death but also made to explode by him. Even at the moment of death, this guy still had to endure the tearing in every piece of flesh. His body was black but his eyes were still wide open. The friends who saw it were also scared. "Too cruel, indeed, our Arashi-san." On another side, a hero gently glided through the crowd of cloaked believers. It was Rina. Her manner was gentle but her attacks didn't deviate in any direction. She exclaimed, "Fireball." 2 or 3 guys were submerged in a sea of fire at the same time. By piece of skin was constantly being burned. But fighting for a while also made Rina tired. She sighed, "Why are there so many of them?" Rina turned around to ask Yumi, "What are the others doing? You guys can still fight, right? Take them down one by one." Like Midu earlier, both Yumi and Carrie couldn't bring themselves to do it, but they are also human. Rina was just as rational as Kai. In the face of her friend's meaningless weaknesses, she had to raise her voice to warn, "Do you want to die?" Just as she had just warned, a fierce guy kicked her in the back, making her wince in pain. Yumi was also made to scream by another guy. Rina stood frozen, wondering with a face of extreme confusion, why. Leonora appeared in the chaos with a peaceful but meaningful smile. "Well, should I let you guys pass the exam, I wonder?" The current scene is very chaotic. Some are injured, others are taking advantage, no one knows when it will end. Then suddenly Leonora appeared unexpectedly in the chaotic scene. Currently she only said calmly, "Well, should I let you guys pass the exam, I wonder?" Hearing that, the whole crowd immediately turned around with surprised faces. Then a guy out of control shouted, "You bastard, you are the saintess." Leonora calmly replied, "Yes, and you know the hero candidates are my subordinates, so it's only natural that I will come to help when they are in danger, right?" Right after that, they started to shift their target towards her. One of them asked, "You don't even have a night escort, and you're going to save them, do you think we're a joke?" She calmly explained, "In the end, you are just a bunch of henchmen seduced by the power of the demon lord. Even from the beginning, I didn't even consider you as enemies. It was as if Leonora had spoken the truth about his heart. He lost control and shouted, kill her, shut that bitch up. Right after that, they directly charged forward. She was almost surrounded on all sides, but strangely, Leonora still didn't intend to counterattack, only saw that at this moment she gave a faint smile and then she moved her lips to summon power. Without any weapon, she could also take them down. They seemed to be frozen. He immediately fell down. Immediately, the guys approaching her fell down. One guy fell down nearby. He felt that he couldn't control his body, then said, I can't move. The guy snarled, impossible. The students standing there almost all knew how things had unfolded. Rina had realized it was Kanzaki. Leonora calmly approached the guy, who was struggling to resist. She spoke, please, don't compare my power to that thing. Leonora unleashed her power, sending the group flying into the air. She calmly stated, my power, scope, and dominion are superior in every aspect. At this moment, Rina stepped forward and asked, why did you save us? But she just smiled and replied, didn't I mention passing you all? Anyway, I would have been more satisfied if you all had solved this yourselves. Hearing this, Rina didn't think much and said, I see, I guess I should thank you. Leonora continued, no need to thank me, protecting subordinates is my duty. Just as she was about to leave, the guy lying on the ground begged, wait. He desperately pleaded, hoping she would forgive them, don't abandon us, what are you going to do to us? Leonora didn't want to beat around the bush and just said, I'm sorry, you're still alive, and a second later, she coldly ordered the students, then everyone, kill them all. Kaori exclaimed at the strangeness, even Yumi too, she said her body was moving on its own. And immediately, the students were all terrified by the sudden movement, they couldn't even hold their knives steady. At this moment, the sword in Kaori's hand, as if controlled by someone, flew straight towards the guy lying on the ground. She panicked, wait, stop. He saw this and begged, please don't. But how could she control it, even if she used all her strength? She couldn't control them. Kaori helplessly screamed, a silent scream, no, and immediately after that, the sword plunged straight into his body. So much blood splattered everywhere. At this moment, Kai and Rin witnessed everything. They were on the rooftop nearby. In front of him was the scene. Although Leonora did not directly intervene with the guy, she controlled the students to do it. He observed carefully and exclaimed, so this is tier 3 dominion magic. Rin, beside him, agreed and said, it's much stronger than my dominion, isn't it? She can control many people at once, its power and scope are completely on a different level. Hearing this, Kai paused and looked directly at Leonora standing there. The thought appeared in his mind. We need to have countermeasures for this ability. Everything came to a temporary end, and very quickly, it was evening. Darkness covered most of the scenery here. The students gathered in the common house. It had been 12 hours since the attack by the devil's cultists. Kai stood silently, observing most of everyone's gestures, and his gaze lingered on Rina. At this moment, Hashimoto went towards where Rina was standing and asked, how is it? Is everyone all right? Her face still couldn't hide her shock. Rina truthfully answered, they're in a terrible state, everyone is really shocked. Hearing this, Hashimoto also agreed and said, yes. Narumi stood nearby, angrily saying, I won't let her get away with it, controlling others and forcing them to kill, that's cruel. A second later, he turned to Rina and asked, were you controlled too, Reina, are you okay? Then she stammered, I think I'm just feeling uncomfortable, I'm sure for the others this will be very difficult. Then she took all the blame, this is my fault. Even Midu showed regret, he lowered his face, I didn't make it in time. Seeing this, the other students comforted him, don't say that, you saved us. Midu in the red clothes agreed, yes, don't blame yourself. Rin herself was also regretting, if we had come sooner. Hearing that, Kai immediately interrupted, it wouldn't have made any difference, none of us are strong enough to fight Leonora. He thought, actually, we split into 2 groups after defeating the attackers with Midu, doing that could save as many classmates as possible. But in the end, we and Midu saved some groups of students, but we couldn't get there in time to save Nagase and the others. He carefully thought, the devil's cult, I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll meet them, but witnessing their general Rainis being destroyed, perhaps they won't act for a while. Furthermore, there's something more important to pay attention to right now. Then, he turned and called Rin, Kanzaki. And then he turned and walked away. Kai continued, can you come with me for a moment? Rin didn't think much and quickly ran after him. She replied, okay. But suddenly, he led her into a room and locked the door. Rin was a little embarrassed. And turned to ask, what are you going to do? While Rin was very confused, standing there not knowing what to do, Kai turned around and answered, to find a way to deal with Leonora's dominant magic. I want help from someone with similar power like her, like you. She shyly replied, I understand, alright then Rin asked. So do you have any plans yet? He quickly replied, yes, I have an idea. Then turned and said directly to her, Kanzaki, first, dominate me. What's happening? It seemed her brain hadn't processed the information, she was dazed. A day after we defeated the devil cult, the kingdom held a grand parade to celebrate the summoning of the hero candidates. The streets everywhere were celebrating, blending into the lively atmosphere. This shows that after the hero candidates demonstrated their strength in the fight against the devil cult, they were welcomed with open arms by the citizens of the royal capital. From all the streets, wherever they went, the people cheered. Only Erasure was very calm. He slowly observed the expressions of those around him. Amidst the excitement and bustle of everyone, Kai observed with great caution. In his head, a suspicious thought flashed. Could this be the scenario Leonora had already prepared for all of them? He looked at Leonora along with the bustling parade. Kai thought, if that's really the case, then she is more dangerous than I thought. The scene at this moment was wonderful. How could they seriously welcome the trainees who had excellently completed their assigned mission? Standing in front of the city gate were the soldiers under the command of Leonora, her knight, and her guard Gaius, and in front of them were 15 trainees standing in a row. Then Leonora smiled and said, it seems everyone is here. Good, I want all of you to return to the Alpha Temple. Hearing this, Rin asked again, Alpha Temple, then Kai calmly explained, that's the name of the temple we were summoned to. I think it's a territory under Leonora's management. Then Midu wondered and asked Leonora, aren't you coming with us, Leonora-san? Hearing this, she replied affably, I have to deal with a few issues related to yesterday's events. I will leave you to Gaius' care. Rina spoke up, I guess we can go back, but the dorm we used to stay in was burned down, you know. Her friend standing next to her replied with a laugh, yeah, it's so funny. But her eyes quickly looked in another direction. It seemed that Naomi and Kaori weren't doing well. C didn't say anything, her eyes were confused, while Naomi seemed to be in a lot of pain. She kept trembling. Seeing this, Rina stepped forward and asked, Naomi, are you okay? Suddenly Naomi was startled. She stammered, sorry, don't worry, I'm okay. Then Leonora, like a gust of wind, appeared from nowhere, approaching and smiling, asked, what's happening? Naomi jumped, her legs lost their balance and she couldn't stand up. Seeing this, Rina went to support her, worriedly calling out Naomi. Then she asked, are you okay? It seemed that no one was bothering Leonora anymore, so she said, if everything is okay here, I'll take my leave first. But Rina's face was filled with killing intent, shouting out to her. Leonora's steps, which were about to leave, faltered. At this moment, Rina was supporting Naomi. She whispered, stop, Rina. She continued, I'm really okay, I'm fine. After hearing Naomi, she happily smiled and turned away. Leonora walked towards the door and said, it's good to hear that, see you all next time. Then she glided past Midu, who watched her with an unpleasant expression. Kai was also very worried. But Erasure had a very excited look on his face. Right after that, Gaius immediately gave the order, alright, let's go. Very quickly, it was already dark. They set up camp together, then lit a fire and sat there warming themselves. Almost everyone was enthusiastically chatting. At this moment, there were footsteps approaching. A group of people was moving deeper into the forest. While Kai was still sitting by the fire, he had noticed the actions of that group of people and whispered, it seems like they're going to do it right now. Rin, sitting next to her, asked, they wouldn't do that, would they? Kay immediately replied, Leonora isn't here, and there are only 30 guards currently. Compared to our hero candidates, they are far weaker. Kai's eyes reflected the burning flames and his determination. He said coldly, that's precisely why this is the best opportunity to kill Gaius. In this situation, there's no reason for us to stop them. We'll watch the show. In the deep forest, the weather seemed very cold at the moment. Gaius was wearing a cloak and following Narumi. He asked him, is it really here? Then he continued, does the monster look like a dragon or something? The boy honestly answered and quickly walked on, I'm telling the truth. But it seemed things weren't going smoothly today. His eyes darted around, saying, how strange, I definitely saw it somewhere around here, but, seeing that, he calmly replied, this area lies along the road leading to the royal capital. It would be very dangerous if a real dragon lived here. We must report this immediately and gather a hunting team. After he finished speaking, Narumi suddenly screamed. So you found that thing? Quickly pointing in that direction, Narumi said loudly, do you think it's in that direction? At this moment, he increased his speed and ran, asking where it was. But then Erasure also approached and attacked Gaius from behind. Boom, it was a destructive explosion, the sound so loud that the space seemed filled with the red of fire and smoke. At this moment, Narumi quickly escaped thanks to the levitation technique. He sighed in relief. That was close, I almost got caught up in it. Gaius was hit and thrown far away. But he was injured, his clothes were torn, and blood flowed from his head, soaking his shoulders. Angrily, he shouted, "You bastards!" Erasure said, "Even my highest level fire power isn't enough to kill you, you're as persistent as a leech." The entire space seemed to tremble, yet his old life still couldn't be taken, which made him a bit annoyed and continued. But then he immediately retreated. He laughed and affirmed, "Destroying those long-lived bastards is my specialty." His feet were firmly planted on the ground. Once again, he used all his strength to activate, his entire body was now filled with power. Maintaining the upper hand, Erasure approached and asked, "You know we're the ones who lured you here, right? So, of course, we've set a trap for you." After hearing that, he was angry but couldn't do anything. Then he clenched his fist and asked, "You need energy to defend yourself, right? But that attack still severely injured you, didn't it?" Gaius chimed in sarcastically, "I didn't expect you to use such a cheap tactic to ambush me, I underestimated you, Erasure." The old man's words in front of him made him very excited. "Thanks," he said, "but I just want to kill you, so I don't care about those tactics." Then he stood up abruptly, gripping his weapon tightly. Erasure ordered with a determined face, "Charge, everyone, don't go easy on him, make sure he dies." But suddenly, he put his hand into his coat and said, "I guess there's no way to stop you kids." As soon as he finished speaking, Gaius immediately took something out. It was round like a marble, and flew straight up into the sky. Everyone was startled. Then, something emitted light. That thing in the sky was a signal flare. Everyone on this side didn't understand. "What's going on?" Midu wondered. Even Rin was stunned by this scene. Then the beam of light rained down, and Kai, standing below, looked at the fireworks in the sky at this moment. He said in disappointment, "Damn it, Erasure, you messed up." The signal flare kept shining in the sky. At this moment, on the ground, the soldiers quickly discovered someone pointing at the sky and said to their comrades, "Is that a distress signal?" This surprised them greatly, and they looked around to check if anyone was missing. After carefully checking around, he spoke. "Come to think of it, I haven't seen Gaius-sama for a while." The other guy quickly replied, "Could he be under attack?" Without wasting too much time, the soldier ordered the other soldiers, "Let's quickly check that light source." That was also his last words. As soon as he finished speaking, he was dealt with on the spot by someone. That person was Kai. He executed it quickly. The others immediately became wary of Kai. At this moment, he approached a man, put a knife to his throat, making him uncomfortable, but the man didn't resist. Once again, Kai raised the sharp knife high and said, "It's not that I hate you, but you must die." Kai dealt with him similarly to the previous guy, then quickly turned and walked away. Seeing his comrades continuously being taken down, one guy couldn't help but yell, "Bastard." Then he swung his sword straight at him, but fortunately, Kai dodged. Taking advantage of his lack of defense, he used the knife to send him to heaven. Kai's eyes were cold. Then he retrieved the knife, and the man fell, while his comrades stood there in bewilderment. But the other guy didn't catch him. Instead he placed his sword horizontally and then pushed him with all his might. That guy hurriedly aimed his sword at Kai. But Kai quickly slashed him, causing the other guy pain. At this moment, he didn't just have one knife, but two, one in each hand. If any of the guys came at him, Kai would send them away. A frightened soldier asked, "Why would a hero candidate do this?" The next second, he approached and put the knife near the guy's neck and said, "Do you think you have time to ask questions?" The next second, only blood splattered everywhere. Elsewhere, the others were forming a circle to surround Gaius. Atsushi charged forward with his fist. Along with Kenta, with two swords in both hands, they charged. Thinking that Gaius couldn't handle it, he used one hand to block Atsushi's fist, and the other hand to use his sword to block Kenta, but they weren't just two people, and it was at this moment that Narumi summoned his power. A spear created from power immediately appeared. He shouted, "Wind spear," and sent it towards him. Akira thought to himself, granting power to his comrades, then he shouted to increase the power. The two lights, blue and red, joined forces and attacked Gaius together. His vision was also very good, very sensitive, so Gaius detected it in time. He successfully dodged them. Before he could recover, Chao joined the attack from behind, but once again he dodged. Not only that, but he also uttered, "Too slow." At this moment, he was a little stunned. Only Chao, with his hand equipped with steel armor, smiled triumphantly and said, "Useless," because Chao used the steel body guardian, causing the old man's sword to crack. He quickly retreated to increase the distance and said, "These damn guardian gods." Next, he widened his eyes to observe who the next attacker would be. And this time it was Erasure. He bent his arm and went straight towards him. A storm of wind and fire came at him. The old man could only use his broken sword to defend. He was increasingly losing strength, sliding backward and could only exclaim. His sword clattered to the ground. His whole body was covered in blood, and what's more, he had lost an arm, but he still wouldn't surrender. Erasure looked at this and exclaimed, "Old man, you sure are tough." At this moment, Narumi spoke up, "I just realized that light looks like a distress signal." He was trying to stall for time, but he said, "No, it's not necessary anymore." At this moment, Leonora appeared, smiling and saying, "You're cornered, aren't you, Gaius?" Everyone saw her, and everyone was surprised. The soldiers from earlier were tied up. Midu looked puzzled. "What are you doing, Kenzaki?" She had used her magic to force the soldiers to tie themselves up. When asked, she only answered, "I'm just following orders." Midu, confused, asked, "Orders?" Rina also wondered, saying, "I didn't expect that. Normally, you'd ignore what others say." At this point, Kai stepped forward to explain, "I'm sorry, Midu, he was just following my orders." Seeing Kai, Midu called out, "Shinjuku-kun." Rin spoke, "I've captured 7 of them, although a few escaped." Kai reassured, "Don't worry, I took care of the rest." Midu, even more bewildered, unconsciously uttered, "Took care of." Then he stepped forward and asked, "Shinjuku-kun, wait a minute." Kai immediately admitted, "Yes, I killed them, I didn't leave any soldiers alive, except for the ones here." Hearing that, Rin said, "You're still as ruthless as ever." Midu also added, "And why did you do that?" Kai explained, "Because I figured Erasure and his group were busy fighting Gaius, so I thought I'd take care of all of these guys." Midu finally realized, and he hung his head, saying, "So that's why I didn't see Erasure and his group." Then Rina turned and asked, "Is this the rebellion plan they discussed before? Are you serious?" Kai didn't want to explain much, pointing forward and saying, "What's the core of the question? Those tied-up soldiers over there have already given you the answer." Kai's actions had greatly disappointed Midu, and he said, "Are you really working with Erasure, Shinju? I thought you were my comrade." Kai, who had never liked arguing, simply denied, "No, I just do what I want." Then Kai continued, "And more importantly, Midu, don't you think it would be better if you went to find Erasure instead of bothering me?" At this moment, Midu realized and said, "Damn, looks like there's no time for chit-chat." Midu rushed forward and said to everyone, "Let's go, we have to stop Erasure and his group." Leonora coldly spoke, "Looks like you lost, Gaius." Gaius, covered in blood, said disappointedly, "What a shameful sight, I couldn't resist my age." Narumi, from above, looked down and asked worriedly, "What do we do now, Erasure?" Erasure frowned and answered coldly, "There's no other choice, after all that's happened. You want me to tuck tail and run?" Atsushi was confused, but Kenta fearfully spoke, "She's the one controlling us, right?" Leonora calmly replied, "Of course, there are also conditions that must be met. If you store a lot of energy to resist, it will be fine." She sneered, "However, you all always rely on spirit guardians and are not used to controlling your own energy, so in a sense, you're just weaklings. That's why I can control everyone." Erasure smirked mockingly, "You vile woman, I bet you can't win if we fight with all our might." When she heard that, the corners of her mouth slightly curled up. Leonora laughed lightly, her tone full of contempt, "What a cheap provocation. All right, I'll deal with you alone, I'll break your fangs." Gaius shouted in panic, "Leonora-sama, don't tell me you're going to use your power to enslave them, that's a bit too much." Leonora gently closed her eyes and smiled, "Gaius, I'm a saint, aren't I?" She turned to look at everyone, "God loves me more than them." Immediately, Erasure roared and charged forward, "Come on." Gaius hastily retreated, "Ugh." Leonora raised her hand and chanted an incantation. And a giant tree immediately sprouted from the ground, launching Erasure into the air. He painfully let out a "Ugh." Before he could recover, she unleashed a wind attack. Erasure took the brunt of the attack. A violent whirlwind struck him, causing him to cough up blood in mid-air. He staggered and fell. Thankfully, Narumi rushed to catch him, shouting, "Erasure." Atsushi panicked, yelling Arashi-san. Leonora continued to execute heavenly fire. A sea of flames erupted, incinerating Atsushi amidst his desperate cries. Immediately afterward, she executed heavenly water, creating a sphere of water. The water sphere enveloped Kenta, causing him to stammer in confusion, "What?" Gasping in panic, he cried out, "I can't breathe, is anyone going to save me?" His cries for help faded, until he became unconscious. Only then did Leonora stop. "Narumi, standing above, was stunned and blurted out, "Huh." Leonora looked up. A cold smile formed on her lips. "Are you all done yet?" From afar, a voice replied, "No, not yet." Erasure shouted furiously, "Do you think you've won, you damn woman?" Just as he finished speaking, a voice called out, "Wait," only to see Midu leading his friends running toward them. He looked up and loudly intervened, "Don't fight anymore, Erasure. What are you getting out of this?" Erasure frowned and snapped, "Midu, if you want to stop me, use your power. I hate your pacifistic approach." Midu asked with a doubtful look, "Do you all think the same as him?" Narumi replied awkwardly, "I'm sorry, Shuji, but I can't trust these people." Midu, hearing that, lowered his head, a little disappointed. "I understand." Rina, from behind, spoke up, "I agree with Narumi." She added seriously, "If you're going to do that, wouldn't it be better to have everyone participate?" Mireille, hearing that, angrily criticized, "Rina, it's wrong for you to use violence to solve the problem too." Midu stammered, "I." Leonora squinted uncomfortably, "In this situation, and you're still arguing." Her eyes shone with a cold yellow light. "At this point, everyone is responsible for starting the rebellion. Do you think I will forgive you just because someone steps up to stop it now?" Several students became confused, their faces showing their worry. Rina's eyes coldly looked at Leonora. Midu gasped in astonishment. Shirori, standing beside Rune, trembled and stammered, "No way." Leonora suddenly cast a spell, shouting, "Heavenly wind, blow them away." Narumi immediately counterattacked without hesitation, "I won't let you do that." He created a counter-whirlwind. The two forces of wind collided, making the earth and sky tremble. Everyone nearby quickly retreated, avoiding the wild wind that was erupting. Narumi began to weaken. Straining to shout, "It's pushing me down," immediately afterward. He was blown away, dragging the whole group into the chaotic wind. Shouts echoed everywhere. Midu gritted his teeth, trying to maintain his balance and shouted, "Damn it." Shirori fell hard to the ground, the others moaned, holding their heads, "It hurts." A student hit his back on a tree trunk, hugging his arm and moaning. Seeing his classmates all injured, Midu's expression was full of worry. Everyone from behind, Erasure, covered in blood, came to reassure him, "Calm down, Midu, no one is dead," he shouted in a stern voice. "If you want to protect everyone, you must change yourself first. Everyone will die if you continue like this." Midu gritted his teeth and drew his sword. "Damn it, there's no other way." Just then, a voice rang out from behind, "Exactly." Rina, excited, concentrated a fireball in her hand, laughing and saying, "Even I can't keep calm." Mireille slowly continued, "Although I don't like doing this, but it seems this is the only choice." The students took turns stepping forward to confront Leonora and Gaius. On the other side, she laughed sarcastically, "Let me show you the difference between us." Not far away, Rin looked at Kai anxiously and asked, "What do we do now?" He stood silently under the tree, and after a long time spoke, "Once she uses magic to enslave them, I will act then. Until then, let's trust them." The two sides faced each other. The atmosphere was tense. From behind, Gaius spoke, "Leonora-sama." He stepped forward with his sword raised in front of her, saying, "I may not be strong enough, but I am still your knight." Leonora reached out her hand towards him, a pale blue light gently spreading, "I will help you heal your wounds." Healing magic enveloped Gaius. Wounds quickly healed. His arms and forehead also gradually recovered. He clenched the hilt of his sword, his eyes fixed firmly on the opponent. Midu's group also immediately took a defensive stance. Narumi said in annoyance, "Damn it, we've been through all this just to eliminate him, but..." Rina reassured, "We're strong too, we can defeat them." Leonora smiled calmly and said, "You are free to try at any time. For me, this battle is also a test for you." She calmly continued, "But of course, if you can't defeat me, you can't become heroes." Midu suddenly charged forward, shouting, "Go ahead, everyone protect me." He swung his sword to attack Gaius, but he immediately raised his sword to defend. At that moment, Midu's sword pierced through the opponent's blade. Seeing the scene in front of him made Gaius's face incredulous. This sword felt wrong. He quickly jumped back. Gaius stared at him, thinking, "This kid can easily cut through my sword." Leonora then swung her hand to execute ice magic, mumbling, changing shape to become as sharp as a knife and piercing the target. The next second, ice shards appeared and rushed like rain towards Midu. Rina reacted quickly, shouting, "Fire melt." The flames erupted, quickly dispersing the ice shards. Leonora's face darkened with a bit of disappointment. "Is that all you can do?" As soon as she finished speaking, she threw out a series of other sharp ice. Midu raised his sword to defend, but an ice shard still grazed his face, leaving a long scratch. "Damn it," Narumi behind shouted. Midu. Meyer used her strength to lift the rock off the ground and controlled it to fly up. She shouted loudly, "What do you think you're doing to our leader?" Narumi silently activated his wind control power. He unleashed a powerful wind slash, coordinating with Mirai's power. Both attacked simultaneously. With cold eyes, killing intent aimed directly at Leonora. The attack was about to hit, a transparent shield suddenly enveloped her. The impact bounced back, debris falling everywhere, rendering the powerful attack completely useless. Both froze, eyes wide open in disbelief. Leonora smiled gently, "I am protected and loved by God, so those divine skills won't affect me." From afar, Kai, hiding behind a tree, muttered, "Is that her holy skill?" Leonora Digaris, age 18, female, attack A, defense D, agility D, endurance E, stamina S, normal condition, skills, level 5 summoning, level 5 holy protection, all attribute skills level 4, sub-skills level 3. He lowered his head, silently analyzing, although her defense stat is relatively low, she didn't need to use it from the start, a physical attack could pierce her defenses, but Gaius will get in my way. Gaius raised his hand to block and asked, "You chose kicks instead of using the destructive explosion, are you tired?" Erashur scoffed, "It's just that I don't need to use it against you." Then Erashur shouted loudly, ordering Midu, "Midu, I'll handle him, you destroy that woman." Midu replied decisively, "Understood." But there was still some hesitation in his heart, "If I don't use divine protection, this sword won't pierce her." He pointed his sword at Leonora, a bit hesitant. Just then, someone threw him a new sword and shouted, "Medusan, use this." The person who threw it was Heike. He caught it and replied, "Thank you." Leonora looked at him with interest, "I think there's something very interesting here. Midu, have you finally prepared to fight?" Midu, with a determined gaze, said, "I know there are people who believe in me, so I must defeat you, Leonora-san." As he finished speaking, he immediately charged forward. Leonora calmly threw darts towards him. He ran while dodging and hitting each one. Then swung his sword, slashing each one. Behind, Rina said anxiously, "If divine protection doesn't work, we can't help him in this battle." Narumi nodded, "Because their distance is too close, we can't help Erashur either." Mirai grumbled, "It's annoying, but we have no choice but to stand still and watch. We'll become a burden if we join the battle at this moment." Gaius on the other side continued to attack Erashur. He swung his sword, and Erashur immediately ducked to avoid it. He quickly lowered himself, throwing a punch straight at his face. Immediately after, he kicked his leg, delivering a powerful kick towards Gaius. He exclaimed in surprise, "What?" Not stopping, he shouted, "Take this," and threw another punch straight into his body, knocking Gaius away. Erashur coldly mocked, "What's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly so slow? The wound has healed, but it seems you still haven't recovered your strength." Gaius retorted, "As for you, you've reached the point where you can no longer use divine protection." The battle between Midu and Leonora continued intensely. She summoned fireballs and threw them towards him. Midu dodged, but found himself only retreating. He thought, "It's useless, if this continues, she'll crush me from that distance." He gritted his teeth, telling himself, "There must be a way, let me defeat you, Leonora-san."